So I got home on Friday, and as I was coming in down Penshurst Street and about to turn into our house, I could see that there were some, I thought they were, my eyesight's not that great, I thought they were kind of dishcloths hanging in the carport. And I was thinking, what on earth are the brothers doing? When I got closer, I realised that what they actually were cards from some of the kids at school, the children of essential workers who've been at school, and they were welcome home messages. And so they'd lined, Mrs. Griffiths and Mrs. Simpson had lined the cards along the side of the carport so I could see them when I arrived home. Beautiful messages. My favourite was one which said, "Welcome home," and then it went on to say, "You're brave, kind, happy, smart, and strog." Who doesn't want to be strog? So I do want to say thank you to the kids, especially for putting that up, for going to that trouble for me. It's really lovely to have been missed, and it was another expression of care among the many that I've received over the past month as my family and I have been grieving the loss of Dad. Thank you. So the experience of these welcome home messages was fresh in my mind as I sat down yesterday with the gospel in order to prepare a homily, and it's because we see Jesus interacting with a child. What's the point that Jesus is making when he takes the child and places this little one right in the midst of the 12? Is he pointing to the child's innocence as being worthy of imitation and admiration? After all, elsewhere Jesus says that unless we become like little children, we can't enter the kingdom of heaven. Is that the point he's trying to make? Or is it about love? That children are naturally loving and therefore like Jesus and like the Father? Or is it that children are completely reliant upon their parents, especially little ones? They trust and depend upon them. And so this is a model of the faith that we're to exercise, the kind of trust we're to have in God. Now, it's not primarily any of those things. The point that Jesus wants to make in the gospel today is that he wants to redefine what greatness consists of what it means to be great. But Jesus' point here is not that the child is an image of greatness, that greatness somehow consists in being like this little child. No, right before he takes the child and places him in the midst of the 12, he says that to be truly great is not to be first, but to be last. That is, to be the servant of all. And this child is actually an example of the all, because no one in the ancient world was the servant of a child. Children in the ancient world did not have pride of place. They weren't at the centre of a family and a family life like they are today. A child was someone without social status, without rights. We might even say a non-person. Children were often actually servants and slaves themselves. They were commodities who could be sold. And even if they remained in the family home, they were at the very bottom of the family pecking order. And so, with this example, Jesus is saying to his disciples, who remember are embarrassed and ashamed because they've been squabbling about who's the greatest. You can imagine Peter saying, a la Muhammad Ali, "I am the greatest." And then James and John and Judas and then all the rest saying, "No, I'm the greatest. No, I'm the greatest." Well, Jesus is saying to them, using this child to make his point, if you want to be great, you can't be first. You actually need to be last. And to be last is to be the servant of children because they're currently in last place. And so you are to serve them. If it seems extraordinary to us that children were considered non-persons without rights or respect in the ancient world, then we're getting another glimpse into how extraordinary the revolution that Jesus began, how extraordinary it truly is. Because Jesus is the turning point. If you can't imagine that the norm for treating children is anything other than love, if you believe that children have a right to innocence, that they have a dignity to be protected, then you owe those beliefs fundamentally to Jesus Christ. And so does everyone else in our culture, even if they do not profess to be a Christian. This value has so deeply permeated our culture that we think it's normal, that we think it's to be universally believed and acted upon. This is why we have the United Nations Universal Declaration on the Rights of a Child. But these rights are not actually self-evident. We owe this belief to Jesus and the Jewish culture from which he came from. He's the true author of human rights for children because he taught that to receive a child in his name is to receive him and to receive God. He is saying that to welcome into your midst a little one is to welcome God, that God is present when children are loved and cared for, when they're welcome in the midst of Jesus' followers. This is why we baptize infants in the Catholic Church. It's because Jesus placed a child in the very midst of the 12, in the midst of the earliest church. And then Jesus said that God was present in this child. How could we not baptize infants then, when Jesus has said this about little children? Of course, individuals in our culture today don't live up to this ethic concerning children all the time. Many people have failed to welcome little children as Jesus tells us to. But the very fact that our culture condemns the ill treatment of children is because Jesus has told us that such behaviour is wrong. This is not actually hardwired into our DNA. It's the result of Jesus' moral teaching. This is also why the abuse of children by church leaders is so heinous, so evil. It's such a violation, and it's so contrary to Jesus' teaching. In the ancient Greek and Roman worlds, before Jesus' time, children were routinely abused in every way, and people thought nothing of it. But the teaching of Jesus has changed all that. Now, this should have meant that throughout the ages, and right up to the present time, the church would have been the safest place in the world for children. And the fact that this has not been the case is the most severe betrayal of Jesus' revolutionary message of love. I know last Sunday was Child Protection Sunday, but the readings today require me again to apologise to all victims of abuse at the hands of church personnel. I want to also repeat something that I've said each year that I've been here at St Declan's, that we are committed to doing everything we can to ensure that our parish is a place where children are safe and loved and respected. Let's return now, though, to the original point that Jesus was making, that greatness consists in serving all. And in Jesus' time, that meant serving children because they occupied, with others, the lowest rungs in society. I want you to notice that Jesus doesn't condemn the desire for greatness in his disciples here. He doesn't say you should not be great. He doesn't say don't aspire to greatness. What he actually does is redefine what greatness looks like. He says, you want to be first? Well, be last instead. Serve all, but especially, look at this child, those that nobody is currently serving. The truth is that as human beings, we were made for greatness. We are made for greatness. But the problem today, as it has always been, is that greatness is confused with popularity, with fame even. And today it's measured by your followers on Instagram. Behind that quest for popularity, though, is the mistaken belief that greatness is achieved by wielding a certain kind of power, a power over others, a power that dominates, a power that achieves greatness by asserting that in order to be first, others must come after me and indeed beneath me. Instead of this, Jesus is saying that to be great is not to forsake power per se, but to choose a different kind of power. Greatness is not power over others, but power for others. It's power exercised as service of others. If you've got a desire to greatness, and you should have that desire, then give your life away in the service of others. This wish, this desire to be last rather than first, is called humility. And so true greatness is humility as one lovingly serves everyone. It is gripping evidence of Jesus' own humility that he chose this little child to make his point. He could have instead said to the 12, "Did you not just hear a word that I just said? I've told you I'm going to be handed over and killed as the ultimate act of laying my life down for you. Did you miss that? After all the time we have spent together, how could you think that greatness for you, greatness for my followers, could consist of anything less and anything other than selfless service without looking for recognition?" I can imagine Jesus going on to say, "Every time I healed someone, every time I freed somebody from the grip of evil, did you see me looking for attention or recognition? No, in fact, I swore you to secrecy about these things." If I were Jesus, I think I would have been very tempted to also say to Peter, "Peter, you just declared to me that you believe that I'm the Messiah, the true king who is to restore Israel as the kingdom of God. But you and the others clearly don't understand what this means. The kingdom of God's about love, Peter, and love is service. Love is laying one's life down. How can you not get this?" But of course, Jesus does not say this. Instead, he takes a little child and says we're to welcome little ones like this one. We're to serve all, but especially the least then, those who are broken and those who are hurting. What Jesus is saying is that true greatness is measured in love. And so my question for you today, and it's the question for me too, is who are you going to humbly serve today? Who are you going to humbly serve this week? Who is the person that is last or least in your world that needs to receive quiet, gentle love from you? And while Jesus doesn't point to himself as the greatest example of this kind of love, we as his followers should point to him. The ultimate greatness of Jesus, the Son of God, is that he emptied himself and became not only human, but a servant, a slave, to the point that he died the death of a rebellious servant on a cross, because he wanted to unleash the real rebellion of true greatness, which is the revolution of love. The Son of God loved you and me and everyone who has ever lived and who will ever live, because he wanted us to be part of that revolution. He wanted us to be part of the revolution of love.